How's it going, guys? Welcome to Carter Central's Call. My name is Vince Carter, and in today's episode, we're going to be covering a brief history of Iran. In order to understand the actions taken by any government, you must first understand their history as a nation. History plays a major factor in determining a nation's future actions because it is upon these past experiences that a nation draws upon and that a nation's psyche is formed. Think about your own history. How likely are you to befriend someone who has done you wrong in the past? When you find yourself with your back against the wall, do you not look to your previous experiences in hope of finding some familiar solution? Just like how our individual experiences shape whom we are today, the same is true for nations as a whole. Iran has a long, rich history, which is full of foreign kingdoms attempting to subdue the region for its precious resources. Persia, the original name of the region, was founded in 550 BCE, but for our purposes, our story will begin a little bit closer to the modern era. It is no secret today that the Middle East is filled with vast oil reserves, mounting to billions upon billions of dollars of revenue for those that can extract it. But during the 19th century, Russia and Britain were the first to find out, and as soon as they did so, Iran became another battleground between two prominent world powers. This period of conflict has been dubbed the Great Game and was only settled after the British and Russian governments decided to split their spheres of influence, including oil rights, right across the middle of Iran. The Great Game had ramifications beyond what any nation must have been able to imagine at the time. In 1908, the British founded the Anglo-Persian Oil Company and were able to extract extremely favorable concessions from the Iranians because of Iran's inability to field a competent, modern military force against the British. Essentially, the British laid claim to Iranian oil while only giving the Iranian government the leftover scraps in the form of a very small royalty. This was an unattainable situation that would not last for long. Fast forward 50 years and 3 lopsided oil agreements later, and Iran finally found a man who would stand for his country and no longer accept foreign domination of Iranian resources. Mohammad Mossadegh was the 35th Prime Minister of Iran, and his administration introduced a range of social and political measures, such as Social Security, land reform, and higher taxes. His government's most significant policy, however, was the nationalization of Iranian oil industry. But as you can imagine, the British did not agree with this idea, and they wanted to keep control over the Iranian oil, so they turned to the United States for help. On August 15, 1953, the US CIA and the British MI6 intelligence agencies organized and facilitated the overthrow of the democratically elected Mohammad Mossadegh and installed Mohammad Reza Pahlavi as the Shah of Iran. When the Shah first assumed dictatorial power over Iran, he initially brought economic prosperity to the land. He had decreased the infant mortality rate and created a new middle class, but on the other hand, he had also created a secret police known as the Savak, whose brutality was rivaled only by that of the Gestapo from former Nazi Germany. After the initial economic gains had worn off, the Iranian people began to grow weary of the oppressive and corrupt regime, which had also begun to force American culture upon them. By the late 1970s, economic inequality became widespread throughout Iran, which sparked massive protests across the country. The Shah reacted by violently cracking down on the protesters, which drove the Iranian people straight into the arms of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, an Islamic cleric who was openly critical of the Shah. Khomeini represented the Shia Muslims within Iran, which was and still is the vast majority of Iranians. Khomeini spoke from the religious center of Iran, which was against women's rights, rigging of elections, constitutional abuses, neglect of the poor, sale of oil to Israel, and the Shah because they believed that the position itself was inherently un-Islamic. The protest gained incredible amounts of traction, so much so that the Shah declared he was going on vacation for an undetermined amount of time. Once the Shah had fled the country, he eventually found refuge and medical assistance here in the US, which had unintended consequences of cementing hardline Islamic rule in Iran. This action infuriated the Iranians, whom saw the US as interfering once again within their own internal affairs. In retaliation, a hardline group of Iranian college students stormed the US embassy, sparking the US hostage crisis, where 52 American citizens were held hostage for 444 days. This action had drastic consequences. It ultimately became the bad blood which still exists between the US and Iran today. If you have been watching the news lately, you would have seen Iran has been making the headlines for causing all types of problems. They have been laying mines in the Hormuz Strait, shooting down a US drone, threatening to enrich uranium levels greater than which the JCPOA allows, and the seizure of British vessels. Now let me be clear. I absolutely condemn these actions, which do nothing but destabilize the region and bring the world closer to war. Iran's history does not forgive it for the sins that it commits today. But in order to understand why these actions are occurring today and to ultimately predict the future Iranian actions, we must first recognize the historical facts of Iranian history, which is undeniably filled with Western interference in Iran's national sovereignty. So the next time you see Iran in the headlines, you are now better equipped to view it through a more objective lens. Thank you guys for watching my YouTube video. Go ahead and leave a comment, a like, a share, a dislike, however you feel about the video. But most importantly, I want to hear what you have to say. Thank you once again. And as always, the truth lies somewhere within the middle. Have a good one.